guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 12 o'clock on a Sunday and it's time for a Q&A. This is where I take all the questions that you've asked over the course of the week and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. I absolutely love the Q&A videos. It's different every single week because people ask different questions every single week. If I haven't answered your question, if I've missed it, I'm very sorry. Sometimes I do miss the odd one or two. Leave it down below in this video and I will get to it next week. And just as a reminder to everyone, please leave all questions in this video. We put like 23 videos up a week now, and it's very difficult for me to find questions if they're left on community posts or on other videos. So if you want a question answered, leave it in this video and I'll get to it next Sunday at 12 o'clock. Before we start the questions and start looking at this week's questions, I just want to say thank you to everyone that came out to the virtual show, which was last Saturday. I know a lot of you bought tickets to go and see that with me and Tom and Roman and Ryland. We've had some amazing feedback. In fact, we've already had people say they want to see it again. So we're doing another one in May, date to be confirmed, but I'll let you guys know. And I'll do the same thing as before. I'll do a lecture of unpublished material to anybody who books from Magic TV. And thank you to everyone that came to the lecture last Sunday. I shared a whole bunch of stuff that I've never shared before. I hope you liked the lecture. And thank you on behalf of Ryland as well. He absolutely loved performing his cube act. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyway, with that out the way, let's start having a look at this week's questions. Okay, so the first question is from Andy Cooper. Hey Andy, how you doing? He says, fantastic information here, Craig. Thank you so much. I have a question. With so much magic out there, how on earth do you curate your tricks? Not your gaffes and gimmicks, you've already spoken about storage solutions, but your impromptu tricks. How do you keep track of those that you like, the ones that you've performed, new ones you haven't got round to? That's a fantastic question. These days, I use the notes page on my phone because that syncs up to my laptop, it syncs up to my computer, it syncs up to my iPad. I'm a big Apple fanboy and I love the fact that my notes page just syncs across all devices like almost instantaneously. And I have lots of notes for so many different things. And one thing that I try to do is I try to keep track of all the different tricks that I'm in the middle of learning or tricks that I know and tricks that, all of that stuff has got different notes pages and I can just search on my notes for a particular note very, very easily. I find that's the best way to keep things going. So for example, I'm currently putting a few videos together and it's kind of a list format. And what I'm doing is, as I'm developing these videos and I'm coming up with things for this list, I'm just adding them to the notes page. But I do that with new stuff that I'm learning as well. When I'm learning a new routine, whether it be an impromptu trick, or whether it be something that I've bought, or whether it be something off a DVD or a download, if it's something that I like the look of, that I want to actually learn and work in, it'll go on that notes page. I've got a really good memory for tricks. Once I've done a trick a few times, I normally can remember it. It's very rare that I'll forget how to do something. But if I'm learning 5, 6, 7, 8 things at a time, and sometimes I can be, especially if I'm prepping for a review show, sometimes I can kind of almost like forget that I'm in the middle of learning something, if that makes sense. So I kind of have an up-to-date current list of stuff that I'm working on. Other than that, I don't have a way of keeping track of routines in sort of a long term. My friend Nemid Phoenix, who's an amazing magician, he has the most anal, like he's got a spreadsheet. It's incredible. And you can search this spreadsheet for creator name of the trick, genre of the trick. It's absolutely fabulous. I tend not to do that. I tend to rely on memory, which is a problem because sometimes I'll see something and I'll forget about it, and it's only like years later that somebody will say, hey, have you seen this? I'm like, yeah. In fact, I used to do that. How did I forget that? And that can happen over time, and if I was a little bit more organized, that probably wouldn't happen. But I'm not the most organized. I've talked about this on the channel before. I'm not the most organized person in the world when it comes to that sort of thing. A lot of the routines that I learn just for the love of it. I learn tricks and routines that I'm never going to perform in the real world. I just love learning magic. I love learning new magic. I love learning new moves. And it might be something that I eventually put into my act. But a lot of the time, the stuff I'll learn, it's just stuff to show my friends. It's stuff that I go, hey, have you seen this? This is really cool. But it might not be necessarily something I actually go and perform. It very much depends. But I find, to answer your question, having notes pages on a phone really, really helps, because it allows me to just keep track of all of my thoughts and what I'm currently doing and what routines I want to learn. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so the next question is by Danny Marco. Hey Danny, how you doing? First, thank you for the Tricks You've Never Seen videos. I really appreciate that. I love putting those videos together. My question is, do you have any tips on scripting and rehearsal for the casual magician? I'm an amateur with no real strive for going pro, but I do want my magic to be as good as possible. I struggle between scripting and improvising without fear to be phony when performing. Great question, and it is something that I'm thinking about doing a video on in the future. My big piece of advice, if you want to learn about scripting and presentational ideas for somebody who's maybe not planning on being a professional magician, is to look at the blog written by the Jerks. I think the URL is thejerks, jerx.com. And he is a very, very clever creator and thinker of magic. His blog is absolutely fantastic. I remember back in the day when he used to have a blog called The Magic Circle Jerk, and it's a very different sort of style. The blog's a very different style now to what it was all those years ago, but it's a fantastic blog. It's one of the only magic blogs I prefer. It's weird. I love reading books. Absolutely love reading magic books. I prefer magic books over DVDs, but when it comes to online content, I prefer watching YouTube videos than reading blogs. I don't know why it is, but the Jerks is one blog that I read religiously. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Andy, the guy that runs it, is incredibly clever, and what he does is he writes exclusively, or not exclusively, but a lot of what he does is about talking about how to actually perform magic as an amateur or a hobbyist in a sort of a casual setting, which is what I think that you're wanting to know about here. And this is a guy that has way more ability to tell that side of things than me, because I'm a professional magician. So I think about things as a professional. And although I'm going to be trying to broach what you're talking about in a video down the line, Andy's got years and years of content on his blog that answers that very question. And I'll give you an example. I could give you thousands of examples from his blog, but I remember him putting a routine up years ago, which I thought was genius. And it was, the whole idea is out with a friend for a drink, and he's talking about his apartment, and he draws a plan of his apartment, and he gets this on a napkin, and he gets his friend to just basically colour in the different rooms, different colours. He's like, okay, that's really cool. And then they go back to his apartment, and when they go back to his apartment, all the lights are on, and the lights are on in the exact colour that they decided to draw on the napkin. And it's an incredibly clever method. He talks about methods on his blog, in very, very, very clever method. But that's the sort of thing that he does. I mean, as a professional, you'd never do that. You'd never kind of do a routine where you're talking about your apartments and what colours the lights should be, and then you go back and you see that just would never happen. But that's the sort of content that you get on his blog, and he's a very clever guy. So I'll put a link in the description down below, but I really advise you to go and check out The Jerks. It's an amazing blog, and I think he's more qualified to answer your question than I am. So I hope that helps, Danny. Okay, so the next question is by Mr. Harmon. Hey, Mr. Harmon, I hope you're really well. And your question is, Craig, you do lots of interviews on this channel with great magicians. Do you ever think you'll do one in reverse where someone interviews you? I would love to hear about your career. You know what? It's something that a lot of people have asked, and it's something that I would consider doing, but it'd have to be the right person interviewing me. I think it'd have to be somebody who knows me quite well, I think. I don't know, but I'd love to do that. I mean, I've done a couple of podcasts. So if you go on, any sort of, Spotify is where I listen to all of my podcasts. But if you go on any sort of podcasting, Podbean, whatever it may be, Apple Podcasts, you can find two podcasts that I've done recently. The first one is the Penguin podcast with Eric Tate. He asked about Magic TV and Ryland, and that was a really interesting discussion. I love Eric. I think he's great. The second podcast I appeared on, and this is one you guys should check out as well, it's called the Magician's Advice Podcast. Again, you can find it everywhere, and that's hosted by two guys, Phil and Ian. They had me on. My episode just went live a couple of days ago, and again, we talked about Magic TV. I talked about my thoughts about magic. I talked about why I'd set up Magic TV. It was a really interesting discussion. So that one is a lot longer than the Penguin Magic one. It went about an hour and a half. And I've got to be honest, that's the third time that I've appeared on the Magician's Advice podcast. But the first two times were years and years and years ago. And the first one was very shortly after, probably a couple of years after I kind of left the magic community, because you guys probably know I left the magic community for about 5, 6, 7 years and then came back sort of early 2020, middle of 2019, something like that. And when I left in the middle of that period, I did a couple of podcasts for the Magician's Advice podcast, and one, I think it was called Righting the Wrongs, and it was all about my side of the story and why I felt that I needed to leave the magic community. And it's a very interesting one to listen to if you want to hear kind of where I was back then, because I was a very different person back then than I am now. I was kind of bitter towards magic, magicians, the magic community, and the magic circle. I've spoken about this in depth, to be honest, in the past. So that's a very interesting one to listen to. And I also did another one back then on marketing, which was a really great podcast, and it was literally just about how to market yourself as a magician. So you can find all of those. Michael O'Brien, who's got a fantastic YouTube channel, has asked me to appear on his YouTube channel specifically talking about marketing, which I've said yes to. Don't know when that's going to happen, but I think it's going to happen shortly. Outside of that, if you know any podcasts or any YouTube channels that want to chat to me, I'm more than open to chat to people and talk to people on their YouTube channel or on their podcast. Absolutely not a problem. It's I love talking. It's kind of my thing. So yeah, anybody who wants to interview me, just reach out to me, and if I can find some time, I will. But yeah, eventually I will do an interview with myself. Maybe I'll get Ryland to do it. Or maybe I'll interview myself and do it kind of screen rant, sort of pitch meeting style, if you know what I'm talking about. Or maybe I'll get Ryland to do it. Or maybe I'll find somebody else. Let me know in the comments down below. If I did do an interview with myself, who would you want me to be interviewed by? Okay, so the next question is by J. Kelly7. And J. Kelly7 says, quick question, what do you think is Greg Wilson's best trick? Greg is one of my favourite magicians, so I'm curious to know which effect you find is your favourite. You know, I did this on a 5x5 a little while ago. I did kind of, I don't think it was the 3 best tricks. I think it was 3 tricks that you might not have seen before, or 3 tricks you might not have heard of before. But I agree, Greg Wilson is absolutely fantastic. He is an unbelievable magician. I've been a big fan of Greg's my entire life. And the list of my favourite routines, I could literally spend half an hour here talking to you about stuff that I like. If we're going to talk about stuff that I actually do, the blank deck routine from Pyrotechnic Pasteboards is absolutely brilliant. I think it's one of the best, most commercial card routines that there is. A lot of the time when I'm out gigging, I'll have a double blank deck of cards with me just so I can do that routine. It's incredible. I also do a ring and string routine that is very heavily based on his moves. I've added a bit of Mark Leverage in there as well, but a lot of it is just him. So that's a really fantastic. You can find that on Ringleader, which I believe Penguin Magic have the rights to. Pointless is one that a lot of people forget about, which is his routine with the pen, where you're turning it around and the pen top keeps moving from one place to another. That's really good. Bandwidth is really good, which is the one with the ring, where the ring gets stretched and then shrunk and then you squish it. There's so many beautiful moments in there, but Bandwidth is great. I've recently looked at Split Focus. You guys know this because you saw it on the review show on Wednesday. I thought Split Focus was brilliant. I thought it was a really great use of a flipper coin, and it wasn't just, a split coin, and it wasn't just that he'd taken a split coin and just run with it. He added that extra thing onto it, which was a really great idea. Anything that he does with cards is fantastic. A lot of the stuff off Card Stunts is great. A lot of his impromptu stuff is really, really good. I like his chip routine with the purse, where the purse goes on the shoulder and the chip goes on the shoulder. All of that stuff is really, really good. Freaky, which is his key routine I used to do for years. Freaky is brilliant. In fact, I've just recorded one to do on a Magic Live at some point. But Freaky is brilliant. It was a copper silver routine with keys. I mean, the thing with Greg Wilson is everything he touches turns to gold. It really does. I don't think I've seen a bad Greg Wilson trick. But if you want to see, I don't know, let me think. I'm trying to think of my absolute favourite. my absolute favourite routine, and it's very hard to decide. I do like a lot of the stuff that he does. It's kind of impromptu. I think he brought out a DVD called Coffee House Conjuring or something like that. And a lot of that is great because pre-COVID, I used to go to coffee shops a lot to meet up with friends, and I loved a lot of his routines that he created that's designed to be done in that environment. And a lot of people overlook that and just look at the really knuckle-busting stuff. But Greg Wilson is absolutely fantastic. But let me know down below in the comments, what's your favourite Greg Wilson trick? I would love to know. Okay, so the next question is by Sam Fuller, Illusionist. Struggling to learn the second deal. What's your recommendations? Best ways to learn, etc. Doing a double push-off is a pain. Will I need this? Thanks a lot. Well, I have a deck of cards over here. I am not an expert at the second deal. I'm okay at it. I'm pretty good at it. I'm not too bad. I've done a few routines on Magic Live with a second deal. I'm never going to be told that I've got the best second deal in the world because I haven't. But it's absolutely passable. Now, my advice for learning the second deal is I really struggled with the push-off second deal. I tried and I really struggled. I tried for years. I just couldn't do a push-off second deal. So it's not something that I'm capable of doing. I use the strike second deal. For those of you that don't know the difference, the push-off second deal is where you push 2 cards off and then you take the second card as you pull the first one back. The strike second is where you pull the top card back a bit and strike out the card underneath the top card. I personally do the strike second deal. Now, if you want some tips on learning the strike second deal, the first tip I can give you is start by pulling that card all the way back and just get used to pulling out that second card. Because what you'll find when you start doing the strike is when you pull out that second card, you'll end up pulling like 2 or 3. So the first thing that you want to do is kind of eliminate that. And the way of doing that is by keeping your fingers here against the edge of the pack so that only one card comes out. Now, when you've learned that motion and you've learned how to do it right, then what you want to do is you want to reduce the amount of that you're pulling the card back. Now, some cardicians, the experts at a second deal, will tell you that you really need half of a border in order to do the strike, which, you know, in an ideal perfect world, that would be the case. I tend to go about that far back. Because it just makes it a little bit easier for me. The other thing is, don't be afraid to necktie the top of the deck. Don't be afraid to necktie the top of the deck a bit to give you, to give it a little bit more cover. I necktie the deck a little bit. You don't have to necktie it loads, but don't do this. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? You don't want to do this. You want to kind of keep it it should be that natural rocking motion. You come up and you go down, you come up and you go down. The other thing is you want to make sure that your fingers are moist. If your fingers are moist, then it's going to make it a lot easier. Now, obviously, you don't want to do what I just did there and lick your fingers. It's fine at the moment because I'm not in a gig, but that's a kind of a gross thing to do if you're around people. So the way to deal with that is to use lotion on your hands or potions. You know, there's lots of different things that you can do. Or just before you do the second deal, if you're sitting at a table and you've got a cold drink, just move the cold drink just to give yourself a little bit of moisture. But that will absolutely help. And then over time, you can reduce the amount that you pull the card back, and you can reduce the second deal. And the way to actually practice this in a real gig, and this is how I practiced it and I got comfortable with it, because when you start doing this, you're going to be convinced that the audience can see what you're doing, and that's never the case. They really can't. But the way to gain confidence with the second deal is to, if you're going to force a card, just do a second deal. Just say, look, I'll deal through the cards anytime you want to. Just say stop anytime you want to. Stop. Okay, that's your card. Can you remember it? Because if, worst case scenario, somebody turns around to you and says, hang on a second, you're pulling that card down, you can just literally do an in-jog overhand shuffle and say, no, I'm not. I tell you what, we'll do it a different way. Rather than dealing cards, I'll just cut cards, just say stop, and you can go into a timing force. So you're doing the second deal in a place where it doesn't really make any difference whether you're doing the second deal or not. Like I say, I'm not an expert at the second deal by any stretch of the imagination. I do a passable second deal. It's okay. I've done it enough in the real world to know that it works. But that's what's worked for me. The other thing is there's not that many routines that I do for it with a second deal. If you actually think about the amount of time and effort that you have to put into to get a really good second deal, and in reality, all you're doing is controlling one card on top of the deck. Normally, there's a lot of other ways, unless you're doing like hardcore gambling demos. There's normally much better ways to achieve what you're wanting to achieve. Not always, but a lot of the time. I shared something on a Magic Live recently of Jay Sankey's Secret Files, where you have a red card on the top of a blue deck, and you do quite a heavy kind of necktie, and you turn the cards over, and it really sells a color-changing deck, because you would be convinced that this deck is red because you're seeing red card after red card. But then when they stop, you've got a situation where all the cards are blue. So there are applications of the second deal, and there's a whole bunch of routines out there with the second deal. But there's other sleights that you should practice over and above the second deal. I'd be lying if I said I did it all the time. But in terms of what worked for me, that's what worked for me. Do a strike deal, not a push-off deal. Start by pulling the card back really far and get used to that action, because that's the other thing. You want to make sure that, just like with any false count, it's timing that's important. It's like, if you're doing an Elmsley count, for example, and you're doing an Elmsley count, what you don't want to do is have 1, 2, 3, 4. What makes an Elmsley count effective is 1, 2, 3, 4. That beat, boom, 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 boom. And you can do an Elmsley count fast, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can do an Elmsley count slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's important that you're not breaking up that count and varying the tempo in which you're taking the cards. Well, it's the same with a second deal. When you're taking a second deal, you want to get it so that you're confident with it, so that when you're, I just took 2 of the cards there, so when you're doing this, it's kind of at the same speed, if that kind of makes sense. But working on the tempo is also something that's really, really important. And understand that generally as a rule, if you're just dealing cards, it's not really something that the spectators are focusing on. So they're not looking. And remember, if you're not being chased, don't run. Okay? But I hope that helps. If anybody has got more knowledge on the second deal than me, please leave a comment down below. And hopefully you can help Sam further. But that's kind of what works for me, Sam. Okay, so the next question is by Enorm Duhan. And his question is, hey Craig, my question is, my workmates and manager want me to show them a trick on Zoom. Just a quick routine. What do you recommend? It'll be on a call through Microsoft Teams. So, there's millions of routines that you can do virtually. But if you're wanting one specifically to do in a kind of an informal situation to workmates, one of the best routines that I've seen recently is Bubble Thought, which is a download. I'm looking at it right now. Bubble Thought by Adam Elbaum, and it's available on Vanishing Ink. It is a fantastic virtual trick, and the whole idea is you have a deck of cards, they have a deck of cards. You cut and get them to remember a card. They cut and get you to remember a card, and they cut to your card and you cut to their card. It's kind of like a do as I do. It's amazing. It is so strong. It really is. It's such an incredible moment. When I watched the performance, it fooled the hell out of me. It really did. And it's very informal. It's very casual, but it's a real reputation maker. It's one of the best virtual tricks that I've seen. I'm probably going to be reviewing it at some point down the line. But yeah, I thought Bubble Thought was brilliant. The other thing that you can do, which I talked about on the review show, is Virtual Triumph. I think Virtual Triumph is really good because you can get them to grab a few cards and you can get everyone on Teams to get involved with this. So it's not just a few people. You can get every single person involved with this as well. So that's really good because everybody can have the cards in front of them, they're mixing them face up and face down, and they all manage to make it work. So that could work really well. So Virtual Triumph. The same guy that created Virtual Triumph also created a Virtual Rising card, which again is really good. I know what you're thinking, because I thought the same thing. How the heck can you do a rising card virtually? Well, you can, and it looks really, really good. So that's available from Penguin Magic, the virtual rising card and the virtual Triumph. It might be available in other places, but I saw it on Penguin. Those are the 3 routines. If you're wanting a specific trick for a virtual show, I'd go with one of those 3. Outside of that, there's a whole bunch of tricks and props. There's so many routines that are coming out these days that are designed to work virtually. There's a whole bunch of them. If you want to do something with an app locked and loaded, it's absolutely brilliant. That works brilliantly virtually. Again, we reviewed that on the review show. But if you're wanting just one routine to show to workmates over Teams, I'd recommend Bubble Thought. I wanted to give you one more idea, Eamon, that you could use for your friends over Teams. So this is a really old principle. Like, this principle is as old as the hills, but this is something that you can pick up and do immediately. So if you don't want to go off and buy something, let me give you something that you can do now that would work really well. And Eamon and anyone else who's watching this, you can follow along with me by all means. Go and grab yourself a deck of cards, pause this, grab yourself a deck of cards, and then come back. I'll assume that you've come back. Give the cards a shuffle. Give them a really good mix up, boom, 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 boom. And then when you've mixed up the cards, what I want you to do is cut them into 3 piles. 1, 2, 3. And you want to make sure that it's about equal, okay? It's about equal. So about even. Then what I want you to do is pick one of the piles. I'm going to go for that one. But it's up to you which one, and give that pile another shuffle. So give it a mix up, give it a shuffle. When you've done that, I want you to look at the bottom card. Okay, look at the bottom card. Remember that bottom card. And now what I want you to do is I want you to spell out the name of that card, including the letters of. For example, I've got the Jack of Diamonds, so I would spell JACKOFDIAMONDS. And then whatever cards are left in your hand, put that on top and square up the pack. So now your card is lost somewhere in the deck, because obviously your card was at the bottom of the pack. I don't know what your card is. Each card's going to spell with a different amount of letters, but your card's going to be somewhere in the middle. And also, I don't know how many cards were in your packet to begin with. It might be more cards than my packet, less cards than my packet, but maybe you're thinking, well, somehow I know that your card is near the top. I don't know. So let's just do that again. Pick up the cards, and whatever the name of your card is, spell it again. 1 card for each letter. So in my case, JACKOFDIAMONDS, and then just drop the rest of the cards on top. Now, the card is absolutely lost in the deck now. No way anyone could know the position of the card, right? Excuse me. This is where the magic's going to come in. I want to pick up the cards and deal one more time spelling out the name of your card. JACKOFDIAMONDS. Put the rest of the cards on top, square up. Now all I want you to do is touch the top of the deck, snap your fingers, and then turn over the top card, and hopefully your card should have come to the top. An absolute miracle. Now, that is an old principle, like it's as old as the hills. The first 2 people that I saw use this principle, not in this context, but the first 2 people I saw use this principle was John Gustafaro and also Mike Powers. Mike did it in Power Plays, and John did it in one of his ebooks. It works itself, okay? It completely works itself. So you just take it doesn't have to be a full deck. You take a shuffle deck of cards. You can get every single person on your call with you to do this at the same time. You just kept them to cut the deck into about 3, and it's about roughly, you make sure that each packet is roughly around about the same, and you just take one of the packets, put the other 2 away, and then you just do the presentation I did. And what's really cool, it doesn't matter what the bottom card of the deck is, as long as they do what you've told them to do, after doing the procedure 3 times, it will always end up on top of the deck. So look, King of Clubs, KINGOFCLUBS, drop on top. KINGOFCLUBS, drop on top. KINGOFCLUBS, drop them on top, and then the King of Clubs will be on top of the deck. It works itself every single time. So if you're wanting to show something really simple and really quick that takes no skill, that you can focus on presentation with, that's a really baffling trick. And again, a little bit like the Virtual Triumph, you can get every single person that's watching you follow along, so they can all have a deck of cards in front of them, they can all follow along, and when they turn over the top card, every single person will have the card on top of the deck. So that's a nice one as well. I didn't want to just leave you with, hey, just buy this trick, this trick, this trick. I wanted to give you something practical that you could go and do yourself. So it's a really nice routine. It's just as I say, it's an old principle, but it works really well virtually. So I hope that helps. Okay, so the next question is, again, by Mr. Harmon. Hey, buddy. And the question is, will you ever do a follow-up video to the magic tattoo video and go over all the stuff you didn't show in the last one? Yes, I will. Absolutely. I know I only went through like half of the tattoos. I will 100% go through all the other tattoos on my arm. I'm really gutted because for the last year, I've not been able to get another tattoo, and I've got the rest of this arm planned out with some really cool stuff. And I'm hoping that at least in the UK, starting next month, I'm going to be able to actually start having tattoos again. And if that's the case, I might leave the video until the summer and just get the rest of my arm done and then show you the rest of the tattoos, including the new ones that I'm building into that particular arm. But yeah, I am doing a follow-up video like I promised in the original video. I just don't like to do like too much on the same subject. I like to vary it up a little bit because I just think that's a little bit more interesting for everybody that's watching, but there will be a follow-up video 100%. Okay, so the next question is by Alan Zorn. Hey Alan, how you doing? Sorry, Alan Zorn, I'm very sorry. Great Q&A, Craig, thank you very much. Just wanted to follow up and ask, when will Hows and Whys the Rubik's Cube be coming out? Hopefully very, very soon. I'm currently scripting it all out. With the Hows and the Whys videos, they take longer to do than a lot of the other videos because I really kind of go in depth with this stuff and I research the best tricks that I can perform, because with the Hows and Whys series, I don't just like talk for like 30 or 40 minutes. I perform tricks to kind of put across my point about why you should use this, why you should use that. And there's a lot to cover with Rubik's Cubes. There is a hell of a lot to cover, and there's so many different people that have worked with Rubik's Cubes over the years. I didn't want to be missing anything out. So it's going to be quite in depth, but I'm aiming to have it out in April. I do try to do one of the Hows and Whys videos every single month. It takes me about a month to put them together. So yeah, I'm guessing in April it'll be coming out, and it'll definitely go out on the magic stuff. So it'll go out on Thursday at 9 o'clock. Probably I'd say towards the end of April, but I'm kind of 3/4 of the way through scripting it and working out which routines I'm going to put in there, which routines I'm going to talk about and the different principles I'm going to be talking about. I know a lot of people don't do Rubik's Cubes, and a lot of people are going to be very interested in this video, so I want to make sure I get it right before I put it out. That's very important to me. But yeah, keep watching the channel. It will be coming, and it will be coming soon. The next question is more of a statement. It's by Magic Elliot. Hey buddy, how you doing? To say that not everyone should have the chance to learn magic is the same as saying people shouldn't have the chance to play football. Ridiculous. Magic is a wonderful hobby, and anyone who is interested in it should have a chance to learn if they want. I completely agree with you 100%. There are people out there that would disagree. Really, really strongly disagree. I know people that would say, well, there's a difference because with football, you're not learning secrets and whatever it may be. I completely agree with you. Magic is a wonderful hobby. And if somebody shows an interest in magic and they want to put the time and effort into learning it, nobody should be able to stop them. No one should be able to stop them. There shouldn't be a barrier to entry at all. In fact, I'm putting a video together at the moment. The problem is I don't know where to put this video because it's not a rant at all. It's not a rant, so it can't really go up on a Friday, but it also doesn't fit with the whole magic stuff thing either. I might do it like a bonus video on Sunday evening, possibly one Sunday evening coming up, but I want to talk about the parallels between being a professional wrestler and wrestling as an organization and as an industry, and magic as an organization and an industry, because I've been a huge fan of wrestling my entire life, but I've also been a huge fan of magic for my entire life. So, and I see there's so many parallels in so many different ways, and I think there's a lot that we can learn from watching professional wrestling and understanding how the professional wrestling industry works. I think there's a lot that we can learn as magicians and performers. So it's a video that I'm wanting to put together, and I'm hopefully going to be doing it in the next week or two. I just don't know where I'm going to be putting it. I think it might go as a bonus video on a Sunday evening. But let me know in the comments if that would be something that's worth looking at. Okay, so the next question is by Damien316. Hey, buddy, how you doing? And the question is, what do you think of Chris Congreaves' new book? I know that you looked at it. I know that you spoke to him about it on Talk Magic a while ago, but now it's available. Have you seen the finished copy? The answer is yes, I have seen the finished copy. I bought a copy of the book off Chris. I obviously saw the original manuscript. He sent me the original manuscript to look over when he was first putting it together. But since then, I've seen the finished copy. In fact, tonight at 9 o'clock, I'm doing kind of a review show special. For those of you that saw the Mark Oberon special that I did a couple of weeks ago, I did a little interview with Mark Oberon on The Insider, and then I did a review of The Insider and what I thought of it. Well, I'm doing a similar thing tonight at 9 o'clock with Chris's new book. So I'm doing a mini interview with him where we're just talking about the book and the content about the book and who it's aimed at and talking about the different routines in the book. And then after that, I'm going to do a review. Even though Chris is a friend of mine, it is going to be a completely honest review. I'm going to perform a trick out the book. I'm going to be talking what I think about it, and I'm going to put that together as a video. If you're watching this, it's 12 o'clock on Sunday, which means later on at 9 o'clock tonight, that video is going to go live, and it's great. Chris was very, very open about the book and the routines in there, and he was very open about a lot of the routines and who they're suitable for and so on and so forth. And then I review the book as well. So it's very, very interesting. I'm not going to give you my thoughts now, but tune in at 9 o'clock tonight, and I'm even going to be performing a routine or two out the book. So have a look for that, and that'll answer all of your questions. Okay, so the next question is by Hungry and Hungover. Hey, buddy. Thanks for the answer to the Foolers question. You're more than welcome. And the logical follow-up question would be, what are some of your favourite AGT or BGT magic performances? There's so many great ones out there. And I totally agree. There's some amazing acts on BGT and AGT, some absolutely fantastic acts. And too many to mention, really. And this is something that I should do as a video at some point, I think, because I think this would be a very interesting thing to talk about. But some highlights for me, BGT first of all. I think David Penn has to be given a big shout out because David Penn was phenomenal. David and Karen, those guys really kind of set the bar when it came to performing magic on BGT. They really did. Their opening, I was in the audience, and the atmosphere was electric. He made illusions cool, and this is at a time when magicians weren't really looked at favourably on BGT, and he changed it all around. I thought that was amazing. Who else did I really like? Darcy Oak and James Moore. I think both of those guys were fantastic. Jamie Raymond, obviously. Also a big fan of Magical Bones from the last season. Don't know him, but I thought he was brilliant. Ben Hart, obviously, I thought gave a great performance, although I preferred his more intimate stuff that he did than the big illusion at the beginning in his audition. I thought that the stuff he did afterwards was much better, although there was nothing wrong with the illusion. What else did I like? Aidan McCann, the little Irish kid. Thought he was great, very, very funny, huge personality. I thought that the trick that he did in the final, which was a little bit like Wayne Dobson's trick, I thought that he could have maybe done I thought that the other two things that he did in the auditions and in the semi-final were more, I think they were better for his character than what he did in the final, but I thought that all of his performances were phenomenal, really. James and Dylan Piper, I thought, did a great job. There's so many amazing acts on BGT, there really are. So I'm always going to forget somebody. But there are so many amazing acts on BGT. Damien O'Brien is another one. Oh my God, the list goes on and on and on. In terms of AGT, Shin Lim, you have to say Shin Lim. I mean, Shin Lim was phenomenal every single time I've seen him on there. Mark Spellman, X, who went on AGT and BGT. How can I forget Mark Spellman? Oh my God. Both as Mark Spellman and also as X. I remember when he was X, especially, everybody was talking about him. Everyone was talking about him. And I remember watching the audition and going, oh my gosh, this guy has great stage presence. I don't know who it is, but this guy is a phenomenal magician. So Mark Spellman, I think he probably tips the bunch when it comes to everybody. Stephen Brundridge was great. I mean, he was the guy that put Rubik's Cubes on the map, right? And Stephen Brundridge came out and just with a very simple Rubik's Cube, boom, exploded onto the scene. I also love Scott Alexander. I thought Scott Alexander did really, really well. And Puck, I think, came out the following year and did really, really well as well. Not really magic, but ventriloquism, which is kind of an allied art. I can't remember the girl's name, but there was a girl a couple of years ago that won America's Got Talent, and she was a vent and sung, and the puppet sung, and I just watched that on YouTube because we don't get AGT over here. I watched that and I was like, oh my gosh, that is just incredible. That is just incredible. That woman, lady, girl has so much talent. And then Piff the Magic Dragon, one of my favorite acts of all time. Piff the Magic Dragon is unbelievable. It's so weird that like it's John Vanderput, and John Vanderput is Piff the Magic Dragon because he's so completely different as Piff than he is as John Vanderput. And hilarious, absolutely hilarious act. Talk about characterization and making it your own. You know, it proved, wow. I mean, it's just so funny, so funny. I'd say that probably Vanderput, Piff the Magic Dragon, or Mark Spellman are my two favourites out of AGT and BGT. But there's too many acts to mention. There's some brilliant ones. Tell you what, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think your favourite acts on AGT and BGT. Okay, so the final question is by Danny Marco, and Danny says, fire stroke flash paper magic for close-up, yes or no? And if yes, any tips? My answer is yes, absolutely 100%. Flash paper is cool. It was Michael J. Fitch, I think, that said, you know, you take flash paper and add it to a routine, and it's going to make that routine 20 times better, and it really is. People just love flash paper, they really do. Any tips for using flash paper? Well, when I use flash paper, I used to, back in the day, back when I was a nipper, what I used to do is I used to cut up a big sheet of flash paper and staple it together and then kind of just keep it in my wallet and pull off one piece at a time. It looked messy, but the problem with flash paper is you don't want to use the whole sheet of flash paper, and if you're just trying to tear stuff off, it doesn't look very good. So that's what I used to do. But now, big tip, Prop Dog sell what looks like Post-it notes. And they're actually made out of flash paper. They're yellow, they look like Post-it notes, they peel off like Post-it notes, but each sheet is a sheet of flash paper, which is incredible because I can just put that into my wallet, and then I can just take my wallet off, take off one sheet of flash paper, and I'm good to go. And it's the perfect size as well. If I'm doing a prediction and I'm writing it down and you know, I'm going to burn it, it's the perfect size to write a prediction on. Something like JSank is in a flash, it's the perfect size to wrap up a coin. It's just absolutely perfect. If I'm doing a routine like Flash Coins Relit, I take off one of those sheets, rip it into four, and there's my little balls in order to produce the coins and vanish them. Like it's great. It really, really is. I would advise you to get some flash pads from Prop Dog, because the other thing is when you take out a big sheet of paper and you rip it off, or you have little sheets of paper that you've cut up, and it's kind of like, let me just take this random piece of paper out my wallet for no reason, and it kind of looks a little bit suspicious when you first take it out, but everybody knows what a Post-it notepad is. Everybody knows what a Post-it notepad is. So when you take out a Post-it notepad and say, I'm going to take off a sheet of this, put that away, it's not questioned in any way, shape or form. It's just not questioned. So I would recommend getting a Post-it notepad. You can get them from Prop Dog. And also look into routines that incorporate flash paper. So Prop Dog have the rights, as far as I'm aware, they have the rights to a routine I'm going to be talking about a lot on this channel at some point down the line, which is a Costa Kimlet routine called Warning, I think it is. And the whole idea is that you've got a lighter and you can see the warning label on there. You take the warning label off, you show that the lighter's blank, you light it, and you throw it back on in a burst of fire. It goes back on the lighter. It looks brilliant. It really does. And Prop Dogs sell these packaged up with the little pieces of flash paper cut up for the perfect size. That's a great routine. So there you're using flash paper in a very organic way. It looks really, really good. So I mean, that's another example, but there's so many different ways that you can use flash paper. But my big tip that I can give you is justify it by getting one of those flash pads, because you just try and pull out a piece of paper or rip a small piece of paper off a big piece of paper, it kind of starts looking a little bit suspicious. The only other thing I'd say is make sure that it doesn't land on a table or something. When you light it, and I've had this problem in the past, when you light it, I've burnt more than one close-up pad. When you light it, you want to hold on to it to the very last second before you produce the coin or whatever it is you're going to do with it, because if you let it go too early, it'll drop down and then it'll carry on burning on whatever surface it lands on. The best piece of advice I can give you is just practice with the flash paper. Don't just assume that all you got to do is light it and that's it. Practice with it, because the more you practice with it, the better you'll get with it. And the people who use flash paper and do it the best are the people that I can tell have practiced it, because it just looks amazing. It's great for a production of a coin, you know what I mean? If you're going to open a routine and you're going to open it, you could just make a coin appear at the tips of your fingers, or you can light some paper and make a coin appear. Looks way more visual. So yeah, get the flash pads, practice, and practice some more. And then when you think you've practiced some more, practice a little bit more. Okay, so the final question, and I know they said the last question was the final question, but one last one by Magic Tricks with a Z. Magic Tricks. And this question has been asked before. It seems to come up every couple of weeks, but it's a quick question and answer, so I'm going to answer it again. Love the channel so much, literally kept me from being bored in lockdown. Here's the question. After lockdown, when you are more busy with gigs and your companies, will you still upload to YouTube as much? I hope so. Thank you. And the answer is yes. I'm really having a blast. I'm a big advocate of, if you enjoy doing something, carry on doing it. You know, my dad always used to say to me, you've only got one time on this planet, so make the most of it. And I'm at an age now where I just want to have fun. And I have fun doing these videos. I have fun chatting to you guys. I have fun replying to your comments. And I'm all about having fun. So as long as people want to carry on watching this channel, I will carry on producing videos, because I feel like I'm making a difference in my own way. I set out to create a YouTube channel that was the sort of YouTube channel I wanted to watch. And I looked around and there were no YouTube channels out there like it. It was all tutorials and exposure videos or just reviews. And I was like, where are the channels that are giving the information about the stuff that I'm interested in? Where's the channels about, you know, looking at current events that's going on with Magic? Where's the channels that are like talking about theory and audience management and all the stuff that I like talking about? And there wasn't one. So that's why I put this channel together, and I'm having a blast and Ryland's having a blast. As long as we carry on having a blast, and as long as you guys carry on watching our videos, there's no reason for me to stop making them. So please don't worry. I ain't going anywhere as long as you guys want to watch the videos that I'm putting out. So there you go, guys. That's another Q&A in the bag, as Ryland would say. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the video. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you've got any questions, please leave them down below and I will attempt to answer them next week. I normally get through most of the questions, but like I said at the beginning, leave them in this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. And finally, would you like to see the footage of the show that we did? Would you like me to upload it? Because some people have said, I missed the show, oh, I wish I could have been there. I have got the recording. If you would like to see the footage, I might be able to make that happen. Let me know in the comments down below. And outside of that, thank you once again for watching. I will see you again tomorrow. I will be here at 2 o'clock with the shorts. I'll be here at 6 o'clock with a live. And I'll be here at 9 o'clock with a 5x5. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic.